Angela Bassett, Emmanuel Macron, Malcolm Gladwell, and Mo Ibrahim, earning praise for his clarity, humor, and commanding presence.
Ladies and gentlemen, since 2016, the Force of Nature, this Force of Nature has delivered over 480 keynotes across 6 continents, from sold-out arenas in New York, London, Atlanta, and Texas, of course, packed auditoriums as well in Dubai, Lagos, and Johannesburg. When Fortune 500 CEOs need their thinking elevated and their strategies disrupted, and of course, when Africa Real Estate Festival needed a voice that will not only theorize the real estate conversation, but also one that has lived it, there's only one name that comes to mind.
The man,
the myth,
the inspiration.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Vusi Thembekwayo.
Please sit. Good afternoon, everybody. Let's try that again. Good afternoon, everybody. We're thin on time, and I'm well aware that we've run well into what is now the evening. Before we get started, let me just acknowledge every single one of the contributors, speakers, panelists who have graced the stage over the past 2 days. Can we give them a round of applause? Maybe let's give them a round of applause like we mean it. How does that sound? Desmond, I want to, before we get started, tell you how immensely proud I am of what you've been able to put together here. You know, sometimes we can mark time by moments that make time stop.
Wow.
And it takes a big heart and a courageous man to allow God to use them to stop a moment so that we can all mark that moment in time. And that you had the wisdom, the grace, and the heart to allow God to use you for this moment. I want to tell you that this is much bigger than you can imagine. And dare I say, I think it's much bigger than you've been able to download. It takes something special for somebody to conceive of an idea, and in the first iteration of that idea, for heads of states, governments, different people coming from different parts of the continents, and even people in parts of the diplomatic corps, ambassadors, to grace an event like this. And I pray, I genuinely pray, brother, that you allow God to use you even more. Let's give him a round of applause. What an incredible gathering. Thank you. So cognizant of how long we've run and the fact that we have run over time, I thought long and hard about what it is that I might bring to this conversation and what I might share, how I might be able perhaps to try and stitch together the discussions that have taken place over the past 2 days or so. Let me make a few confessions up front. First is, I was actually a part of the conference for the past 2 days, all throughout. I was listening online, I listened to every single speaker, every single panelist, and some of the discussions and conversations I myself found fascinating. And so, of course, a lot of those speakers are no longer here today. Some have had to travel back, and some have had to catch flights and move on and do other things. But an event like this is not about a single speaker and a single contribution. It's about the collective wisdom that comes together to deliberate, delegate, and discuss on something as big and as pressing as how do we take forward the real estate sector in the continent that we live. So I come from Africa's most beautiful country. It's a true story. I come from Africa's most beautiful country, Africa's most industrialized nation, with the most beautiful women.
Relax.
People are big, it's true. And be that as it may, one of the challenges I think we have in this moment and in this season, as Africa is to see ourselves the way the rest of the world sees us. And there are three things we've got to be able to do here. The first is, we actually have to see each other as a single, unitary group of people. You know, the only people who think Africans are different are Africans themselves. And it is often true for the Africans who don't travel outside of our continent. What we see in each other is our differences. When you land in Europe, Asia, when you land in Latin America, when you land in North America, when you land in those territories, you very quickly realize that it actually doesn't matter which part of Africa you come from, they see us as one part. Some of us will tell you stories about landing in a country and you tell them you're from a part of Africa and then they say, do you know my friend John from Togo? No, that's 5,000 kilometers away from me. Because to the rest of the world, we are this one massive block. And what that means is, the rest of the world doesn't understand our differences, our cultural nuances. It doesn't understand the things that are the sizzle, the spice, the stuff that makes us different. The reason why I'm up here, I'm still the greatest genre of music in the continent today. I know our Afrobeats brothers would disagree, but let's just be clear, there are two countries in Africa, South Africa and everybody else. I don't know why I joke. But to the rest of the world, we are one unitary block. And then when we here are convened together, talking together, what we do is we find reasons to somehow separate each other. And you see, this is the problem with bureaucracy. The problem with bureaucracy is it finds a reason to self-replicate. Bureaucracy is not a system built to make itself more efficient. It's a system built to make itself more inefficient. For the market you're operating in, whatever the rules, the laws are, people will find a reason to make those rules and laws a path for doing business, rather than asking the question, do these rules and laws even serve what we're trying to do? Do they serve what we're trying to build? And do they serve the aspirations collectively that we have? So the first point is, we've got to see each other. Actually see each other. In my language of isiZulu, when you greet a person, you say sawubona. What sawubona means is we see you. It is the recognition that as I stand here, I am a representation of the hundreds and the hundreds of ancestors who brought me to this moment. That I don't walk alone, but that when I meet you, I meet the people who brought you to that moment. And so I and we see you. We have to see each other as a unitary block. The second point is, if I hear one more person tell me that South Africa is the future of potential, I'm going to throw up. The only people who think Africa has potential in the future are Africans. Everybody else who comes here knows that Africa is now. That's why they're here. They're not here for 50 years from now, they're here for today. They don't bring capital into our environments to reap it 50 years from now. They bring capital into our environments to yield returns today. In my industry of venture capital, I've been hearing this thing about Africa and the future and potential for the past 10 years. And then suddenly, when the Europeans decided that African venture capital was an investable category, the mood shifted and suddenly venture capital in Africa was in vogue. It was today. The asset class didn't change. The quality of transactions didn't change. The quality of founders didn't change. The quality of startups didn't change. Sure, the technology moved a little bit, but that is par for the course in technology. What shifted was their perspective became that our season and our moment is now. And when they said our season and our moment is now, suddenly we started saying our season and our moment is now. So I want to challenge all of us here who have a passport and travel the rest of the world, and spend times at airports, and you're meeting partners and investors in the rest of the world. Stop saying Africa is the future. Stop saying Africa is potential. Africa is now.
Yeah.
The money is now, it's today. Invest now, and you'll generate the capital and the return now. Now, of course, on a long-term basis, and I'll share with you some of the numbers in a moment, on a long-term basis, we will outstrip the rest of the world in terms of growth. But I'm a numbers guy. Even today, on a risk-adjusted basis, in many of the countries in our continent, The potential of our continent is in this moment, in this season. And then the challenge for us is to make sure that we see it in that way. I'm going to ask the team to help me in a moment because I want to share with you some numbers that I thought are important. I should say, I love numbers for several reasons, but the greatest poet of the 20th century, the man whose poetry is better in my mind than even T.S. Eliot and Shakespeare. This is a man who's made more contribution to poetry than many of the poets most of us study here. You might have heard of him. His name is Jay-Z. He says men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So what I'd like to do is to look at some of the numbers that I want us to look at in a minute. I'm going to jump through these very quickly. This is the first batch of numbers. In classical public speaking, I've spent 23 years of my life on the stage and traveling the platforms and speaking. When it comes to holding the microphone and gracing this platform in the world, I have no equal. I am that good.
Yeah!
By the way, it's a very strange thing. Africans are the only ones who insist that you are humble. It's a very funny thing. I often say, when you know the God who sent you, you know that it's not your job to carry that mantle. It's just your job to do the job.
Yeah.
This is the first thing I want to share with you because I think it's important. In classical public speaking, one of the things you're taught, my brother Caesar, is that typically in an audience, there will be about 30% of the people in the room who are disbelievers. It doesn't matter what it is you have to say, they will not believe what you have to say. If you're smart, good-looking, dark, well-dressed, basically me, and you're well-spoken and the ladies love you, it's even worse. Because you will come across as too much of a smooth talker, and so these people won't believe you. But there is one way to win them over. That is to present them with a number. Now the trick here is, if you present them with a number, put it in a graph, because if it's in a graph, it must be true. If you don't put it in a graph, give them a statistic. If it's a statistic, make it within 2 decimal places, because 69.98% just sounds a lot more believable than 70%. I'm helping somebody here. I'm helping you. There's a presentation you need to make this week. Remember this tip. This is work done by the University of Gronenberg, and they studied the world's economy since the death of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. 2,000 years of economic history, and they looked at this collective economic activity we all generate. We call it GDP, the sum total of economic activities of all the countries in the world. It only started being called GDP in true measure circa the 1400s. And here's what they proved. In the first 1,000 years of the recent and most economic history of our world, the world's largest economy was India. Doesn't square with the movies we watch on TV. I don't know if you know this. Did you know that the British Empire extracted $40 trillion worth of wealth over the period in which they colonized the colonies of India? People hear that number, they don't colonize it, so let me tell you what that means. Over the period of colonization, the data tells us that the British government extracted the entire GDP of the economy that is the United States today. This is why I get upset when people talk about emerging economies and frontier economies and the future. Whose future? Because if we were the future, why would we the ones taken? Why were our lands taken, our resources taken, our grandfathers taken? You don't take something for the future, you take it for the benefit of today. Between 1000 and 1820, the world shifts, and the world's economy is China, now the largest economy over that period of time. So today, when we all talk about the rise of China, let me make this point, it isn't the rise of China, ladies and gentlemen, it's the re-rise of China. China isn't dominating the rest of the world because it's experiencing it for the first time. China is dominating the rest of the world because it's called muscle memory. The Chinese remember what it is to be at the top of the world. You know, we don't often think about this, but the world's largest economy today, the United States, in global economic terms, is a teenager. The Gettysburg Address, 407 years ago, our forefathers set foot in this continent and brought forth a new nation. What was that? What was it, 1776? That's just the other day. Jan van Riebeeck, who arrived in the Cape of Good Hope in my country, South Africa, arrived in 1652. A white man arrived in South Africa before the United States existed as a nation. Part of the reason you see the United States do what it does is because it's acting like what it is. It's a teenager. I won't say any more about that. I need my visa, so it's very volatile at the moment. But you begin to see the United States show up around the 1800s. And by the 2000s, the United States is the world's largest economy. And that will continue for, in my opinion, some time to come. Of course, it's the world's largest economy by actually how we calculate GDP. But if you look at real production, if you look at imports to exports, then there is no denying that China is now the world's largest economy in real economic terms. We can argue that point later. So the point is, when we talk about these economies that are shifting and changing, they're not the future. They were, and they are re-becoming. What doesn't feature in that graph is Africa. Here's the second graph I want to show you. Remember, I'm still talking to the non-believers in this room. This is the world's economy over the past 2,000 years measured in GDP. That dark blue line is the sum total of economic activity. Look at between the 1st and the 18th century, that line is flat. 18th, 19th century, 20th century, suddenly a massive exponential rise. The world today is wealthier than it has ever been. That light blue line is global life expectancy. The world today is healthier than it has ever been. Said differently, there has never been a better time to be this little species called a Homo sapiens sapien on this little rock we call Earth. I want to say here, especially to those of us who go online and complain and moan about how difficult it is, you, in your family, in your generation, has it the easiest anyone in your family and generation has ever had it. Nobody in your entire bloodline has ever had the opportunities that you have today. Nobody. They've not had those opportunities, they've not had those networks, they've not had those relationships. Do you realize that with the phone in your hand, you have more technology than the astronauts that first landed on the moon in the 1960s? If you believe they landed on the moon in the 1960s. I think this is an important point, especially to young Africans. What are you complaining about? Honestly, what are we complaining about? It doesn't work, sure, so who must make it work? You make it work. For this moment and for this season is what yours and my generation was brought here for. I'm often fascinated when we complain. What did you think was the deal? Who gave you the promise that life was supposed to be easy? I live by Lewis Hamilton's moniker. I don't need it to be easy, I just need it to be possible.
Yeah.
So, the world today, wealthier than it's ever been. Human beings, healthier than they've ever been. Let's come to this continent of ours, Africa. I'm going to make 3 very quick points. The first point is this. We are the youngest population set in the world. And so you heard it spoken in some of the panels here about this massive youth demographic dividend that's about to kick in. Europe is old and it's aging. The Americas kind of stuck. Asia, young, but Africa's really where the future is. With 60% of our population beneath the age of 50, I'm going to tell you a statistic that will really blow you away. We have a fairly substantial business in Nigeria. And sometimes when I spend time traveling the world, talking to potential partners and LPs about granting us capital, this is the statistic that really gets their attention. 250 million people in Nigeria. 250 million people in Nigeria alone. And 60% of that number is under the age of 17.
What?
Said differently, 60% of the population of the country of Nigeria is not yet economically active. They haven't bought homes, they're not paying taxes, they haven't bought cars, they don't have bank accounts, they're not economically active. So when people talk about this Africa being the future, I'm going, hold on, they're under the age of 17. That's going to come into the economic system over the next 5 years, easy. Even if, on a macro basis, you just went, this is the place to do business, the rising tides elevate your ships. These numbers are real, and they very quickly find their way into the factoring system. Secondly, our standards of life are improving. We're increasingly urbanizing, more and more of us moving to the cities. In my country of South Africa alone, The number of urbanization and city development that I've seen just over my lifetime has been unbelievable. And of course, it's created massive tensions, in particular around how we relate with other parts of Africans. And then, this is the last point I want to make. The question is this, Richard. The question is, where's the wealth and the value creation going to come from? This is the question I have to ask. Where's the wealth going to come from? So I looked at the world's largest economies, the world's largest companies 10 years ago, and the world's largest companies today, just the top 10. And here's what I found recently. In 2011, 3 of the world's largest companies were technology companies. Apple, Microsoft, and I've been moved, IBM. The rest were petrochemical companies, hydrocarbon companies, mining companies. That was in 2011. By 2021, 2 of the world's largest companies were not technology companies. Were not. And it isn't to say that the ones that are no longer on this lost in market cap value. That's not what happened. What actually happened is this. The technology companies created value at a rate that superseded their hydrocarbon counterparts. Sometimes when I speak English, I feel like I use too much big words, you know? So let me give you an example of this. Zambia, beautiful country, and the only woman whose heart I ever broke, she was Zambia. Lovely girl. I was a young man, and I was foolish. But you know, the GDP of Zambia is circa $50 billion. The GDP of Zambia. 5 years ago, Doria takes over a company called Anthropic. And they come to market with an AI technology called Claude. This year, they will generate $50 billion in revenue, and their market cap is close on $1 trillion. Said differently, in 5 years, he has created economic value worth the economy of Zambia. And that's just Claude. We are still meeting, talking about custom plans. The problem, I suspect, isn't that the potential isn't there. The problem, I suspect, is that our belief system is wrong. We have a fundamental problem of our belief system. This is why Africans love pocket watching. If you're rich, don't tell Africans. Because the first question they ask in social media is, where does the money come from? The answer to which is, why is that any of your business? Nobody spends more time trying to delegitimize your wealth than a person who has no idea how you gained it. It's an African thing. It's because we become so good at suffering and misery, we think our job is to spread collective suffering and misery. If you're not smiling, I'm talking about the demon in you. This is the demon I'm talking about. You need to pray over that demon that you're dealing with. I love seeing Africans succeed. I love seeing Africans make money.
Me too.
I love seeing Africans change the world.
Yep.
I love seeing it.
Yes.
This is why when my brother Des invited me here, I accepted the invitation to be here. Because I recognize that his success is not a threat of mine. That the rising tides can elevate all ships.
Yeah.
That he can do well and I can do well and there's more for everybody to do well.
Yeah.
This was, I just showed you guys the world. Now I'm going to show you Africa. This is Africa's largest companies by 2021. What you should notice is that they're predominantly African, or South African, of course. That's the last time. Okay, I've got 2 more times I'm going to tell you how amazing South Africa is. But what do you notice about this? Of the companies that are fundamentally on this, 3, maybe 4, are technology companies in Africa. The question is, where's the future going to come from? In my mind, the point I'm trying to make quite simply is this. Is that there are these 4 fundamental markets I think we need to worry about. First, mine, South Africa. $500 billion GDP, driven fundamentally by mining, manufacturing, finance, and real estate. If you took South Africa You took Nigeria, $330 billion GDP, oil and gas manufacturing, construction, agriculture, and then you brought in the Black Star,
Yeah.
$113 billion GDP, agriculture, mining, construction, and then lastly you went to Kenya, $140 billion GDP, and agriculture, excuse me, forestry and mining. Take these 4 economies and say, these are the 4 economies I want to build around. Do you know what you have? I'll tell you, you just created a market size worth $1 trillion.
Wow.
That's it. Just to focus on 4 economies. South, West, East. And that's not even including North Africa, which is a fundamentally different part of the play. They're so far ahead in their game. Just go to Morocco, go to Egypt, go see the way that they do things, the speed at which they move. Egypt, as we speak, is an entire construction site. Cranes everywhere that you go. I was in Morocco under the invitation from His Royal Excellency when they were launching the Moroccan Financial Center. This is close on 10 years ago. And they said that the benchmark for entering Africa and financial services was South Africa. They wanted to unseat South Africa, and they've done a phenomenal job at doing it. It used to be, if you wanted to invest in Africa, you bought shares in South African Stock Exchange. You wanted telecoms, you bought MTN. If you wanted finance and banking, you bought Standard Bank, and you ended up owning Standard Bank and Stanbic in the rest of the continent. Well, the Moroccans decided that they want to change that. Then the Seychelles entered the game. Then Mauritius entered the game. The point is, the rising tides elevate all ships. If you just took these 4 markets alone and said, these are the markets around which I want to build, you would have $1 trillion opportunity. So here's the question, and then I'll get to the point I want to make. If it's $1 trillion opportunity, what needs to shift? We have one fundamental constraint: energy. Even whilst I've been here twice now, I've experienced power cuts. Without the energy question, all of these conversations are great conversations on a PowerPoint deck. They don't translate to real life. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So I'm going to show you the numbers of the continent. These are the population set by people in each of these countries that have access to reliable electricity and power. In the blue is the percent of people in countries that do not have access to reliable electricity and power. And what do you notice? North Africans have their act together. Fastest economy growing in the continent, you see all of them constrained. Look at Cameroon, Congo, Burundi, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Somalia. Come to West Africa, look at Sierra Leone, Liberia, with over 90% of the people without reliable access to energy and power. This is crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. And the point is, when you're building a business plan, and you're building a business plan for sustainability, these are the things you have to have in consideration. One of my best friends, runs a company that for the past 2 years has been in the Financial Times fastest growing companies in the world. Top 100 fastest growing companies in the world. It's called Heralds, and they're an energy company based out of South Africa, and they work in large part to solve this problem. And he tells me he cannot get enough produce, enough material, enough base equipment to sell into the rest of the continent because of these power constraints and issues. So the point I make is, whereas the rest of the world sees a problem, I see money. Because if there is a universal truism I want capital is this: capitalism is about finding the problem and having the guts to make sure that you convert that problem into money. So whatever the problem is, finding it and converting it into money is the real thing. Lastly, if we are to win, my brother, how do we do it? This is the question. If we're fundamentally to win, then what are the things we need to do? I think there are 4 things we need to do. The first thing is to understand that this winning game is engineered. And so I want to talk very quickly about this. For those of us in this room who are truly concerned about winning, I'm going to start first by giving you this challenge. You've got to surround yourself with the right people. It's about the right people. Who you are around is who you become. Now, for the business owners in this room, for the entrepreneurs in this room, for the founders in this room, allow me to give you some advice that one of my mentors gave me that changed my life. You have the right to be unreasonable. Who told you that being reasonable was your portion? If you and I are going to do something extraordinary, then it's going to take extraordinary effort and extraordinary people. I fully recognize this is not for everybody. So when we recruit people in the firm and we're bringing people on, one of the things I say to them is, if you want work-life balance, I pray for you and I hope God gives it to you. And I'm sure there is a bank or a large company somewhere you can work for, but you can't work for me and want work-life balance. To be clear, I'm not saying I'm going to enslave you. I'm just saying we are so obsessed about what we're doing that I can't be concerned about you wanting to make sure that you're off work every day at 5 o'clock. They're not clapping, I'm talking about things. It takes what it takes.
Like that.
This is my motto. It takes what it takes. Now let me share this, and I'm almost sure that I'll be attacked for saying this, but it is true. If you found us working 15-hour days, you don't get to join us and tell us working 15-hour days is toxic. Then you should not have joined us. Go and work at the place where they work 9 hours a day, and there are plenty of those places, but where we work, with the mandate God has given us, and the work we need to do, and the massive transformative potential that's out there, I can't afford to be working and keeping work-life balance. It's a Sunday. I've been in your country since Friday. My daughter is playing nationals for basketball, netball today. My son had a date with his girlfriend yesterday. I would have far rather have been home for that, but I'm here because it takes what it takes.
I love it.
The most powerful rule we have in our firm is watch the door.
Aye.
Because who you allow in it is who you allow yourself to become. You allow mediocre people in, you're mediocre. You allow toxic people in, you're toxic. You allow gossipers in, you're a gossip. Watch the door. It takes what it takes. So the first is you need to make sure you're surrounded by the right people. The second is you need a strategy and a playbook to win. Your strategy has to be about how to win. Now my question for all of us in this room is this. Do you have a strategy for yourself on how to win? I'm going to give you guys a resource in a moment. I always come bearing gifts. I'm going to give you guys a resource in a moment. Some of you can download and go and work on and spend some time on it. A tool that we use for entrepreneurs when we mentor them that helps them think about how do you build a winning team and how do you make sure you play to win. And the reason I've become a tool, guys, because I think these conferences are fantastic. We meet, we talk, we deliberate, but at the end of the day, the reason nothing moves is because nothing changes. So you've got to find a way to make sure that what you take from here, you go into the life and you actually do. So what's your strategy to win? Third, what are the tools and resources that you need to win? And then lastly, and this is the game changer, what's the mindset that's required to win? What's the mindset that's required to win? Don't worry about taking pictures of this. I'll share a full copy of this presentation with you because I'm not going to run through all of it, but I'll share a full copy of it with you. So first, let me give you the first gift. Here's the first gift for all of you. If you want to scan it here. This is a test that we help entrepreneurs and business owners and founders and leaders build and develop. So here's what we did, Richie. 15 years we've been working on one of our businesses, which is an accelerator. And we are all over the world. In fact, we are on the throes of signing a contract in the Caribbean with one of the large development banks in the Caribbean. We work with the KSA, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and we work with several of our partners all over the world. And so we wanted to find out, is there a DNA that makes winners win? 15 years of research, we'd like to think we finally found this DNA. It's 6 different levers, and so what we did is we built a test that you can take, but more importantly, that you can send to your own team to take. And you can see where they're strong and where you're weak and where you're strong and where they're weak. Because once you understand the formula for building, then building becomes possible. The second test, second tool is this. plan. An awful lot of the conversations I've been hearing here today are centered around structuring and building and planning and raising capital and making sure you've got the necessary financial modeling and structuring. You don't have to answer this, but I'm curious for any of you who are courageous enough to answer this question. Has anybody in this room ever paid an accountant or somebody like this to build a financial model for you? Anybody? You had to raise money and somebody needed to build a financial model for you, yes? And typically what happens, and this has been our experience, is you pay this person and they build you this really, really fancy model, different Excel spreadsheets, numbers that talk and assumptions. Then you take these numbers and you put them on your business plan, and you go and you meet your investors. And then after presenting to your investors for the first 30 minutes, they look at you and they say, this is really, really great, but tell me about. And then they start asking you questions about the financial model you didn't build. And suddenly, you don't know the answers to the question. Because you didn't build the model, you don't know the payback rate, you don't know what kind of beta they built in, what's the weighted average cost of capital, how you want to generate an IRR. So we built this tool, and we give it to our entrepreneurs to use. The tool was really complex, and so what we decided we would do is build a way where they can build a financial model for themselves. Financial model that used to take 3-4 days, now in 5 minutes you can build it for yourself and interrogate it. And we've overlaid it with some very clever AI stuff. So I brought it for you guys to play around with, just so I can leave you with something here that makes sense. And then lastly, let me talk about this mindset bit. I was sharing with my sister, Madam Ambassador, that I was in her beautiful country, Barbados, for the first time, beginning of this year, right? And I was actually in all of I did much of the kind of the Caribbean. I was in Jamaica first, which was unbelievable, and that's the point I'm going to come to in a moment. First of all, let me tell you that the TV images don't do any justice to Jamaicans. I'm not a small guy, I'm a big Zulu man. I played rugby, and I know how to fight. If you want to fight, GPS me, I'll come address you. I don't need you to invite me twice, that's how I was raised. But I found myself in the middle of Nigeria, standing amongst men who were 6'6" and 6'7", and they are average, and I'm not. Very intimidating stuff. And in one of the keynotes that I delivered, I went to this place that is the massive indoor arena for where they do their championships. Think about this. The world's largest economy, the US, has 350 million people. It spends more money than all the other nations competing in the Olympics, apart from Russia combined, preparing its athletes for the Olympics. Say that again. The United States spends more money than all the other countries competing in the Olympics, apart from Russia and China. All the other countries combined, preparing their athletes for the Olympics. And yet, every time it comes to the 100 and 200 meters, who wins? The Jamaicans, who come from a country of 2 million people, with an airport that is a quarter the size of this room. So there is something about what's happening in the water in Jamaica. And while I was there, I wanted to find out, what do these people know that the rest of us need to learn? Because there was a huge asymmetry here. I thought it was genetic. Because think about it, right? They were taken from our strongest people in the continent here in West Africa. They were put on a ship and sailed across the Atlantic, and only the strongest survived that journey. And when they arrived in the Caribbean, they were then indentured and enslaved. Only the strongest survived that journey. And then they were sent into other parts of what became the Americas, and only the strongest survived that journey. So the strongest of the strongest of the strongest. I thought it was that. It isn't this. I thought it was maybe the plantain or the food. It's not that either. Here's what it is. It's mindset. And I'll prove it to you. So, the first thing about their mindset is they have a mindset where they play to win. They don't play not to lose. A mindset of playing to win, not playing not to lose. Help me say this, God, please. This is particularly true to the capital providers in Africa. Do you know why all of us are talking about why there's a capital constraint? It's because a large number of our capital providers play not to lose. Try them. Go and meet them. Go and meet the massive pension funds, the large institutions. going to raise money, and you realize the person you're talking to is not playing to win, they're playing so that they don't lose the money. Now the problem is these are two very different mindsets. Playing to win is very different to playing not to lose. This is why Arsenal just beat Manchester City. By the way, how did the game go? It was 1-1 when I left. How did the game go?
2-1. City
Who
won.
won?
Man City.
Man City won? Yeah, that's it. Anyway, Man City cheated, I'm sure. Man City cheated. But you have to play to win, not play not to lose. And there's a fundamental difference here. Playing to win keeps the game a game. It keeps it fun. It keeps it dynamic. Playing not to lose removes the fun out of the game and just makes it about loss aversion. So let's talk a bit about this man. Fastest athlete in the world of all time, 958, 100 meters, which means in that 958 race that he ran, in 100 meters running 958, it means he ran 10 meters in less than 1 second. 10 meters in less than 1 second. He's not as fast as me, but he's quick. Listen to what he says about playing to win. Team, help me with audio here.
So which is stronger then? A desire to win or a fear of losing?
Wow. Wow. For me, I think the desire to win. I think you want to win so bad. Like with me, I've always wanted to win, and that's what drives me. Like competition and hard. There's this one thing I remember in 2016. It was coming up to my last Olympics. And my biggest competitor was Justin Gatlin. And throughout the year, I was struggling with motivation because I had won everything, you know what I mean? And it was at the end, and I was like going to training, and the older you get, the harder it gets. And I was like, I was just tired, and every day it was work, and I got injured, and it was double the work. So for me, it was hard to motivate myself every day. And I remember watching a video that he was on a podcast at the time, and they were saying, "Oh, are you gonna win?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna win," and they were gonna go on a tour around the world with gold medals. And that, for me, did it for me. It light the fire, and I was like, "Yeah, you're not gonna win." So it kind of lit the fire. That's how competitive I was. You know what I mean? If I probably didn't see that video, it probably would have been different. But I saw that video, and it helped to motivate me to say, all right, you know what? I need to get to training.
So which is stronger then?
I pray for every single person in this room, one gift, just one gift for you. I pray that you have a hater big enough that you wake up in the morning and get your ass in the gear. I pray this for you. I pray this for you. I pray for you what I like to call a worthy adversary. The greatest gift sometimes God can give you is something big enough to fight against. So you hear here, fastest man in the world, without qualification. And even at the loss of motivation, the one thing that woke him up in the morning was an adversary that said, I'm going to win. And so he speaks about that race. And so what I pray for you is the gift of an adversary, but I thought I would just close with this. Here is the race that he's actually talking about.
On your back.
in that race, but I pulled my hamstring. It was a whole, it was behind the scenes, and you know. Leaders, hear me now. Winning is engineered. When you see teams that win, it's engineered. Nations that win, it's engineered. Generations that win, it's engineered. They are not celestial.